We already know that Martin Richardson's grandiose political fundraiser at the country club is going to be the epicenter of the drama. We've seen the previews. Victor Newman arriving in a sleek helicopter, greeted by Vernon Dupree. Jack and Diane Abbott bickering as their Genoa City marital tension spills over into Fairmont Crest, and a literal tornado bearing down on the town, ready to shatter the country club's crystal chandeliers. But amidst all this natural and political chaos, there's a far more sinister and intimate storm brewing in the shadows of the gala. And her name is Hayley Hamilton, or should I say, whoever she used to be before she sank her claws into Bill Hamilton. Let's set the stage. Kyle Abbott has traveled to Fairmont Crest to support his childhood best friend, Martin Richardson. Kyle is wealthy, sophisticated, and entirely used to the manipulative games played by the elite women of Genoa City. As he navigates the crowded, opulent room of the country club, mingling with the who's who of the DMV, his eyes inevitably scan the crowd. And that is when it happens. The moment that is going to change the entire trajectory of season 1, Kyle Abbott locks eyes with Hayley Hamilton. But here is the absolute kicker that has my jaw on the floor. Kyle doesn't recognize her as Hayley, the dutiful, loving wife of high-powered attorney Bill Hamilton. He recognizes her under a completely different identity. So this makes me wonder, who the hell was Hayley before she arrived in Fairmont Crest? My theory is that Hayley is a career grifter, a black widow who has spent years bouncing from city to city, changing her name, her hair, and her backstory to snare wealthy men. And it is glaringly obvious that Genoa City was one of her previous hunting grounds. The sheer panic that is going to wash over Hayley's face when she realizes Kyle Abbott is standing in the same room as her husband is going to be cinematic gold. I can already picture the color draining from her cheeks, her heart hammering against her ribs, right beneath where she hides that deadly poison serum she's been secretly administering to Bill. But that's not all. The connection between Kyle and Hayley isn't just a passing acquaintance. According to the breadcrumbs we are piecing together, these two share a deeply intimate, scandalous past. They were lovers. Yes, you heard me right. The chemistry, the undeniable tension, and the fact that a kiss between them wouldn't feel foreign at all suggests a fiery, passionate history. I strongly suspect that Hayley, under whatever fake name she was using at the time, targeted the Abbott fortune. She probably tried to run a long con on Kyle, seducing him with her irresistible charm. But Kyle Abbott is no fool. He was raised by Jack Abbott and Diane Jenkins. He has a PhD in dealing with scheming women. My guess is that Hayley realized Kyle was too smart, too observant, and far too difficult to manipulate, so she packed her bags and vanished into the night before her cover was completely blown, eventually setting her sights on an easier, older Mark, Bilham. Now, fate has cruelly thrown them back together in the most high-stakes environment possible. Kyle is not the type of man to just let sleeping dogs lie. He is going to confront her, and he's not going to do it politely. I envision a scene where Kyle smoothly maneuvers Hayley away from the prying eyes of the Dupree family, backing her into a dark, secluded alcove of the country club. The tension will be thick enough to cut with a knife. Kyle will not hesitate to call her out, dropping her old name and threatening to walk right up to Bill Hamilton and expose her entire fraudulent past. Can you imagine the absolute terror gripping Hayley in that moment? Everything she has worked for, every calculated lie, every drop of poison she has slipped into Bill's system is suddenly on the verge of being completely unraveled by a ghost from her Genoa City past. Desperation breeds reckless behavior, and Hayley's default defense mechanism has always been her sexuality. When backed into a corner, she is going to try to use her body to buy Kyle's silence. I can clearly see her leaning in, her voice dropping to a sultry whisper, attempting to reignite that old flame with a seductive kiss, hoping to blind Kyle with lust. But this is where she severely underestimates her opponent. Kyle is going to see right through her pathetic attempt at manipulation. He is going to reject her advances, likely with a smirk that absolutely shatters her ego. She doesn't realize that Kyle is practically immune to these cheap tricks. He's going to look at her not with desire, but with a cold, calculating amusement. This brings me to my next massive theory regarding Kyle's true motivations. Why wouldn't Kyle just immediately march over to Bill and tell him the truth? Because Kyle Abbott likes to play games. He is going to realize very quickly that Hayley has hit the jackpot with Bill, and he is going to want to know exactly what her end game is. Is Kyle going to blackmail her? Perhaps not for money, but for the sheer entertainment of watching her squirm. Or, even more terrifying for Hayley, what if Kyle is sharp enough to deduce that Bill is in physical danger? Let's look at the facts we already know from the timeline. Joey Armstrong met with Bill just over a week ago on May 29, and Joey explicitly noticed that Bill's hands were shaking uncontrollably. Bill is physically deteriorating right before our eyes because the poison Hayley is giving him is finally taking a severe toll on his nervous system. Kyle is incredibly observant. He is going to take one look at Bill's pale, sweaty complexion and his violent hand tremors, and he is going to put two and two together. A known grifter with a fake identity is married to a wealthy, suddenly ailing older man. It doesn't take a genius to spell out M-U-R-D-E-R. The introduction of Kyle Abbott into this storyline is the ultimate wrench in Hayley's master plan. How on earth is she going to continue poisoning Bill when Kyle is watching her every single move like a hawk? We know that Hayley hides the poison serum near her chest. She even violently rejected Bill's physical advances at the club recently just to protect her stash. If Kyle is keeping his eyes glued to her all night, observing her every interaction with Bill's drinks or food, Hayley is going to be completely paralyzed. She won't be able to administer the next dose without risking Kyle catching her red-handed. The psychological warfare Kyle is going to wage on her will be exquisite to watch. He will be the cat, and she will be the desperate, cornered mouse. And let us not forget the environmental factor playing into this night of terror, the tornado. The previews have already confirmed that the power is going to go out, sending the country club guests into a blind panic. Glass will shatter, the chandelier will fall, and people will be trapped. We even know that Danny Dupree and Bill Hamilton are going to get locked in an elevator together in the dark. Now, this makes me wonder, did Kyle somehow orchestrate that? Did Kyle deliberately separate Bill from Hayley to protect the attorney, leaving Hayley completely isolated and at Kyle's mercy in the pitch-black ballroom? The thought of Kyle using the chaos of the storm to further interrogate and torture Hayley is absolutely thrilling. With Bill trapped in an elevator with his ex-wife Danny, a woman he has been nostalgically flirting with, and comparing Hayley to Hayley, is losing her grip on her husband emotionally and physically. And with Kyle breathing down her neck, she is losing her grip on her freedom. This leads me to question what Hayley's ultimate breaking point will be. When a venomous snake is stepped on, it bites. Will Hayley realize that she cannot buy Kyle off, cannot seduce him, and cannot hide from him? If so, what are her options? My darkest theory yet is that Hayley might decide Kyle Abbott needs to be eliminated. We know she is already conspiring with her cousin Randy Parker to unalive Bill. Randy is a henchman, a guy who isn't afraid to get his hands dirty, especially since he's currently running with Joey Armstrong and the Plasma Ring's mysterious impaler. Could Hayley order Randy to take out Kyle during the chaos of the tornado? Imagine the sheer audacity of Hayley trying to orchestrate a hit on a prominent member of the Abbott family. If anything happens to Kyle in Fairmont Crest, Jack and Victor Newman would tear the town apart looking for the culprit. Hayley would be bringing the wrath of Genoa City's most powerful titans directly down on her own head. Alternatively, what if Kyle's presence forces Hayley to make a sloppy mistake? She has been so careful, keeping Bill isolated from Dupree family functions, spinning lies about muggings to Joey Armstrong, and shutting down Leslie Thomas's offers for an alliance. But the stress of Kyle's blackmail might push her to rush the poisoning. If she tries to give Bill a massive, lethal dose in a panic to secure the inheritance before Kyle can expose her, she might leave irrefutable evidence behind. Tomas Navarro, Bill's junior partner, is already highly suspicious of Hayley after overhearing her odd conversations. If Kyle and Tomas were to cross paths at the bar and start comparing notes, Hayley's entire house of cards would collapse in spectacular fashion. I am also incredibly curious about how Leslie Thomas might factor into this new dynamic. Leslie is relentless. She has approached Hayley multiple times to form an alliance to take down the Dupree family, and Hayley has always refused. But now, with Kyle Abbott holding her darkest secrets over her head, Hayley is incredibly vulnerable. If Leslie happens to eavesdrop on Kyle and Hayley's confrontation in the shadows of the club, and we know Leslie is notorious for lurking where she doesn't belong, Leslie would suddenly hold the ultimate leverage over Hayley. Leslie could use Kyle's knowledge to completely blackmail Hayley into doing her bidding, turning the Black Widow into nothing more than a puppet for Leslie's chaotic schemes. The layers of deceit, the overlapping motives, and the sheer psychological tension that Kyle Abbott brings to Fairmont Crest are exactly why Beyond the Gates is the best soap on television right now. I absolutely despise Hayley for what she is doing to Bill, but as a viewer, I cannot help but applaud the brilliant corner the writers have painted her into. She thought she was the smartest person in the room, the ultimate predator playing with her food. But the moment Kyle Abbott walked through those country club doors, Hayley became the prey. Will Kyle expose her past to Bill the moment the lights come back on? Will Hayley successfully silence the Abbott heir before he can ruin her life? Or will the tornado claim a victim that completely resets the board for everyone involved? I am on the absolute edge of my seat, counting down the seconds until this crossover airs. The stakes have never been higher, the secrets have never been darker, and the fallout is guaranteed to be legendary. Let me know your theories in the comments below. Do you think Kyle will save Bill, or will Hayley add another body to her rising count? Until next time, keep your friends close and your Genoa City ex-lovers even closer.